right away you can see one of the differences between Jared and me. He's good with no notes. I've got too much going on, I guess.
I have too little going on?
I didn't say that. For the past 3+ years, Jared and I have been honored to serve as pastor developers at a church on the west side of Baltimore. 2 churches, just over a mile distant from each other, had wrestled with their future for a number of years. One church knew it would close in a matter of months because it had no money. It did have a building that it could sell, however. It had 25 people worshiping on a Sunday morning in 2 worship services. The second church had 16 people worshiping on Sunday morning, but they had money in the bank. And so they were most resistant because, as one of them said to me, they could have kept going for a long time on the money they had in the bank. For both congregations, the population there averaged about 70 years of age. Many members had died in the past, and others chose congregations that were closer to their homes. But they kept coming back. Those who were there kept coming back because it was the church that they knew. It was the church where many of them had been baptized and confirmed and were married, and where they had buried loved ones. And so it was their church. They had forgotten, however, how to reach out into the community. And with the community complexion having changed, they were very fearful. The members still there were afraid of beginning something new. But for some strange reason, on a day when the Spirit was really moving, they voted to close. And they voted to commit all of their resources to trying something new. Unfortunately for some of them, the something new was too new and too different for them. I think that they hoped with the 16 and with the 25 they would come together, and with Jared and me, suddenly they would have a vibrant and a strong congregation, and they could continue to do what they'd always done. But they were mistaken. Within the first 3 months or so of our being there, quite a number of them left. From the beginning, we proclaimed that Journey of Faith would be a radically inclusive congregation, and we posted a huge, brilliantly colored sign, banner on the outside, and it read, "Everyone invited, everyone welcome, no exceptions." Shortly after that, at a congregational meeting, one of the older women said, "When do we get to vote on it?" My sweet, gentle husband said, "You don't." The decline of their former congregations. The fact that most of them were over 70 years old, and there were very few people of color in the congregation. In a community that was wonderfully diverse with African immigrants, African Americans, Latinos, some Asians, all of that just terrified them. Absolutely terrified them. Fear is what cripples us, isn't it? Fear cripples us, both on personal as well as broader levels. The very familiar passage from Mark, one of my favorite, where Jesus is calming the storm, is one that we know well. Jesus invites the disciples into a boat to cross over to the other side of the lake. at least 4 of the disciples, by my count, were experienced fishermen. And we should assume they had experience with storms that would arise suddenly. They panic, though Jesus sleeps through the storm. They wake him, fearful that they will drown. And when Jesus awakens, he says to the storm and to the terrified travelers, "Peace, silence, be still." And as the storm subsides, Jesus asks the disciples, "Don't you have faith yet?" This morning I want to talk for just a few moments about fear. There are fears. There are storms in this journey of ours. There is no doubt about it. This journey of life, this journey of faith. Some storms we will weather because they are little more than an inconvenience. Some are potentially quite devastating. 2 years ago, we began to see that our newest grandson, Alex, who is 2.5 now, had a head that was growing way out of proportion to his body. Alex was and is the sweetest little boy next to Jesus that I've ever met. He is. I was not blessed with biological children. I was very fortunate, however, to marry a man who had 2 daughters. While Jessica, our oldest, and her 5 children live in Atlanta, Stephanie, the youngest, with Alex, lives really near us in Baltimore. Stephanie and I have weathered many, many storms. I entered her life when she was 11. Let me just say that I'm the one who went to therapy so that I would not kill her and leave him. And I'm convinced that anything that was ever written about wicked stepmothers was written by wicked stepchildren. But Stephanie is the daughter I never had. And she invited me to be present at Alex's birth. From the moment he drew breath, Alex was mine. He was my grandson. And if you probably can't imagine it, unless like me, you wanted to have children but were never ever able to have them. And suddenly you find yourself a grandparent of one you can hold in your arms and bless, cry with, play with. Alex is mine. We were all fearful because Alex's head was growing so fast. We were worried that he might have had hydrocephalus or something worse. We didn't know. He had a battery of tests and scans, and as we waited for the results, we all retreated into our own individual safety zones. We couldn't share with each other because we were too terrified. I remember crying, and I remember praying and asking God, why Alex? I am one who often hears God's voice in my sleep. And so after that prayer, I woke up the next morning and God had answered me. But God answered me with a question. God's question was, why not Alex? Why not Alex? His grandfather and I are pastors. He has a whole slew of people of faith in his corner and other people of goodwill who want only the best for him. Why not Alex? Our faith in that moment was like the disciples. It was faith that wasn't quite yet. Why not Alex? You know the storms that threaten your lives. You know the things that cause you to retreat into your own shells and and pull in and question faith, question God. You know the storms that you live with, the fears that threaten to drown you, and in the security that you hold on to with fists tightened and wills that are strong. And you know some of the risks involved in stepping outside of those comfort zones that you created for yourselves and for your families. But the journey of life is one that even with the best GPS available, we will find storms to be endured, side trips that call to us, unknown dangers, and delightful oases along the way. Last Thursday, we all awoke to the news of the shooting in South Carolina. 9 people killed by a young, troubled man who intentionally targeted this historical black church. I was at Luther Crest, as you heard, with our youth. I had no television, I had no newspaper, I had a smartphone, but I didn't tune into it until Thursday morning when I spoke with Jared and he told me what had happened. For me, it was like September 11th all over again, only it was closer. After I was able to calm my thoughts, and it took me most of the morning, I gave thanks for you, Cal. I gave thanks for you. I gave thanks for you because of your commitment to the invitation that Jesus has extended to you to get into that boat and to cross over to the other side. To be intentional about opening up your lives to the richness of yet another part of humanity that is not abundantly represented here. But let me tell you what else I fear. I fear that there are many people, many more people out there who will enter into our churches and other places where there are black people and open fire because of their own fear that the storms of diversity are swamping their boats. I fear that good people like you will shut themselves off from knowing people of color because of the potential storms that are part of the unknown. I fear that your grandchildren and my Alex will never know the goodness and the gifts of the children and the grandchildren of those who were killed at Emmanuel in South Carolina, in Charleston. And I fear that if people of faith, even people like the disciples who have no faith yet, if people of faith aren't intentional about crossing over to the other side to make the world we have a better one, then I fear we will all drown. We will drown. A boat is a vehicle whose purpose is to convey people or goods from one place to another. This boat, this church, is conveying us on this journey of still having no faith to being more trusting and more faithful. Jesus has invited us on this journey, a journey where we are, from where we are to where God would have us be, wherever the other side is. Just as I heard from God regarding my fear, why not Alex, I ask you today, why not me individually? And why not Calvary? I don't know everything there is to know about you and how you operate. I surely don't know that much about how you as individuals operate. I know from just my experience of a few weeks that you're very highly functioning people. You're good at maintaining relationship with each other. And I suspect you're also good at developing relationships with other people. Why not more African Americans or Native Americans or Latinos or Asians or other people? Why not? Why not forge a deeper relationship? Deeper, really get to know someone whose background is not like yours. Why not say, for example, to an acquaintance that you deplore the actions of those who would deny people their right to live because they're not like them? Why not say that to somebody that you know who is different from you? Why not say that you want to stand on the side, that God has called you to stand on the side of everyone who's on the fringe of our society? You've already done some of that with your support of the gay community and with marriage equality. Why not racial inclusiveness? Use this boat, Calvary, as an entree, if you have to say to an acquaintance, you know, my church is responding to Jesus' call to be inclusive. And then be very honest and say, but as long as I've worked with you, my coworker, as long as I greeted you, my neighbor, as long as I've seen you, I don't know the storms that batter at you. I don't know the circumstances of your life. I don't know how you have weathered it all. And you don't know how I have. Can we have coffee together? Can we have an ice cream together and sit down and talk? I know this is awkward, but I really want to listen. I want to know. Can we go beyond the superficial so that we can get to the other side? But you do it in a way that is comfortable for you, even though it might be a little uncomfortable. We have a movie tonight. I really hope you'll come out. It's from 6:30, and I know the bulletin says to 8, but it needs to be to 8:30, so we have some time for conversation. But even if you don't have time to stay, please come. Some of you might wonder, upon seeing it, why I chose it. No matter who you are, it will disturb you. Let me say that. It will disturb you. It might horrify some of you. But it's a movie with a message that deserves to be listened to. It depicts life for a large segment of our population who are in the boat or who need to be in the boat with you. The book study and the discussion that began last Thursday night continues. If you were here for it, you know how simply and powerfully people's stories are. We're hearing stories from Charleston, South Carolina. A couple of us were talking about this morning. We heard a story from a 15-year-old girl whose mother was one of those killed. And she's already spoken a word of peace and grace and forgiveness to her mother's killer. Could we do that? She's in the boat already, and I want to be in the boat with her. I'm reminded of a phrase from Martin Luther King Jr. when responding to the criticism many were leveling at him that he was a radical, an extremist. He said, "The question is not that we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be." The nation and the world are in dire need of creative extremists. I want to be in the boat with that 15-year-old and with Jesus, extremists. So why not Calvary? Why not you individually? Think about it. Think about it. Given who you are and your personality and your gifts, what can you personally do to begin or to further a relationship with a person of color? What can Calvary do to let the community around here know that it will not stand silently and ignore what happened in Charleston and what is happening around our country and what could potentially happen here in South Minneapolis? What can Calvary do? You're invited to get into the boat and to go from where you are now to where God would want you to be. The storms will come. I promise you, the storms are going to come. We know that. The storms are also going to go. But it's in the relationships with each other and in the development of relationships with other people that the fears are lessened and the storms are calmed. That's where any growth begins. That's how trust is nurtured. And that's where faith is deepened.